Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Smetzler here, Director of Programming at the Green Film Festival of San Francisco. That we're not your kind of typical environmental film festival. We love to kind of get eclectic, which I think is pretty obvious in this year's lineup. And so it's really neat when we kind of come across films like the one you just saw, American Dendrite, which just has like just a cool flavor, and we were kind of excited to be able to screen it. And we're lucky enough to have filmmaker Adam here. Welcome, Adam.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks again for making the film and sharing it with us. Um, Maybe a good place to start is like, um, how did you kind of decide to kind of go down this rabbit hole and know that this was a story that you wanted to kind of tell on screen?
Yeah, so the what's interesting is like the story of kind of how I got drawn into this like isn't really in the film at all, but I was living in Chicago at the time when I made this and just became kind of fascinated by the city's relationship with the Chicago River and the water. And the Chicago River has this whole unique, interesting history where the river like doesn't actually naturally connect to the Mississippi. It normally just drains the area kind of right around Lake Michigan and back into Lake Michigan. And what happened as Chicago became a big city in the 1800s is people were dumping all their garbage into the river as they did back in that day. And it was flowing all into Lake Michigan, which was everyone's drinking water. And people started getting sick from drinking this polluted drinking water. And so as the city got bigger, they realized they needed to do something about this. And so the solution they came up with was they built this big canal alongside the Chicago River that basically pulled the water away and reversed the flow of the river and then connected it to the nearby Des Plaines River, which links into the whole Mississippi system. So when this happened, then the river flowed the other way. All the garbage flowed the other way. Lake Michigan was clean. People's drinking water got better and problem solved. Um, what then also happened is people in cities like St. Louis further down the river then kind of went like, hey, what the hell? We're now getting all your garbage. And so I just, being somebody who was living in the city and is interested in these sort of things, just kind of became fascinated with not only this history, but also then the kind of, you know, what does it mean for something upstream of a river to affect things downstream? And as I kind of was like, oh, I may want to make something kind of about the Chicago River, interconnected rivers. It then kind of grew into this further thing where I sort of realized you can kind of, I guess, recreate that, if you will, with this kind of the game of telephone sort of thing that we do in the film, where it's, person to person, and how does what one person say upstream affect what somebody says downstream. And so it kind of just grew out of that.
Very cool. And like when you went on this journey, you know, obviously you were kind of in this discovery process.
Mhm.
Like is there like what do you think the biggest surprise to you was? Um, or things that you didn't expect to happen that did?
I think what was pretty cool is there were a lot of things, topics and themes and stuff that I was interested in that, drew me to wanting to make this film. But I was also wanted to be very careful to not put my words and ideas in other people's mouths. And when we were talking with people, we were very deliberate in trying to make sure we weren't asking leading questions. It was like, here's the clip of what the person before you said, and then kind of go and take it where you want. And, we would ask kind of follow-ups of, can you talk more about this, that, or the other thing? But um, what was really amazing is throughout the course of the trip we did, people said a lot of the same things that I was thinking and feeling myself, about their relationship with the river or worries about things like climate change or, these sort of things that I think it was really amazing to see how kind of widespread that these sort of similar thoughts and feelings were in places that were totally different from each other. So it was really
Hmm.
cool to go to all these um, different cities and towns and places, some of which I had never been before, and meet people. And they're just like us, and we're all people kind of thinking and feeling the same things, even if we come from different backgrounds and places. And so it was really kind of moving to me to be able to see that in real time, because I feel like that's so hard and rare in America nowadays. And I was kind of unsure, like, what are people going to think and of this and react to what we're doing, or where is this direction of the, narrative gonna go? And it came together in this really naturally, um, this natural flow that I think tells a kind of cohesive story about people in all these different places right now.
Yeah, neat. Well, of course, there's this kind of inevitable question, right? It's like, what was the kind of aesthetic inspiration for filming on Super 8,
Mhm.
and what do you think that brought to the story, and what challenges?
So I kind of first got into shooting Super 8 during COVID, actually. I had taken a 16 millimeter class when I was in school right before COVID started, and kind of got into it as a hobby of a way to like be making little experimental shorts and stuff at a time where it was hard to make other films. Everybody else was making banana bread and learning how to knit, and I decided to learn how to shoot Super 8. And so over about like 2 years or so, I kind of started to figure out the ins and outs and quirks of shooting on this kind of funky format that's not really meant for making, polished films like this. And kind of started to like piece together like a camera rig that could kind of do more stuff. Like I figured out how to basically attach like a CCTV camera to the viewfinder that would then connect to a monitor so I could like have a little monitor on my, 1980s camera, things like that. And so I, over time, started to realize, it might be interesting to make something more substantial on Super 8 one day, but I knew it kind of would have to be the right project and it couldn't just be for the aesthetic. It would have to kind of reflect what the project was about as well. And then when I had the idea for American Dendrite, I then realized, oh, that would make a lot of sense as a way to kind of lean into the like road trip Americana time capsule aesthetic that I knew I wanted it to have. Um, but also as a way of this was a very micro budget thing. I, recently graduated undergrad. I was about a year out. Everybody who worked on this was like of a similar age. Some people were still in school. We had, we were just driving around the country in a minivan and we didn't really have the means to make something that looked really crisp and polished and whatever. So shooting on Super 8 kind of helped lean into that in a way. And okay, it's going to be gritty. It's going to be, um, you know, this kind of, I guess, visual aesthetic that isn't kind of what you'd expect from a film like this per se. As far as like challenges, I think it was one of the unique things with when you're shooting on Super 8, especially we shot at 24 frames a second. Usually 18 is typical, but we wanted to shoot on 24 for kind of more modern conventional standards. The rolls only last 2.5 minutes long. So you only have so much film in the camera at once. So you have to be very deliberate with when you're running the camera because it's literally like firing a money gun almost. Um, and it's also led us to do more things like these kind of more still, almost like moving photographs, as I kind of thought about them, of how we were shooting the film as a way to, because if you're trying to do a lot of handheld stuff with Super 8, it can make things really jumpy and jagged and not really look that great. And then the other thing that also that it affected was when we were doing these interviews with people, um, we decided to not shoot people talking on camera, partially because there's only so much footage in the camera and we only had so much film. So it would be
Mm,
kind of weird to like tell people about every 2 or 3 minutes, hey, stop, we got to change the film, which takes like a whole thing. But also because we didn't want to, we are coming up on people who didn't expect to be in a film that day necessarily. And so we didn't want to then stick a camera in their face and go, okay, now perform for the camera. I think by kind of shooting in the way we did, where we did these interviews as kind of just us with a microphone between them, and then we got those shots where it's so we can get a face to the person. But I think it allowed us to have more kind of intimate and open conversations than I think we otherwise would have had we had people talking on camera. So it's kind of it led to these interesting decisions of you can't you I guess that deviate from normal filmmaking, and there are certain things you have to be aware of when shooting on Super 8 and certain things you can and can't do. But I think those guardrails then kind of helped us develop an aesthetic and a sense of what we were doing instead of it just being kind of totally all over the place.
Very cool. Well, thanks again for making the film, Adam, and sharing it with it. It was such a neat film to watch, but also great to kind of join you on your adventures.
Yeah. Thank you so much.